Hi there, my name's Hayden from blendertutorials.org, and today we're going to be looking at how we can use Blender's After Effects add-on to use After Effects for our compositing needs with a shot rendered in Blender. The first step that you're going to do is you need to get the JSX Importer add-on for Blender. Now, as of 2.82, that add-on was no longer shipped with Blender, so you have to go to the URL that is currently on the screen now. That will take you to this website here. You're going to come over here to download file, and you're going to download this file here, io export after effects.python, to a folder that you are able to then get that from. After you have that downloaded, you want to go to your preferences, so edit, preferences, and make sure you're in add-ons. Then you want to install. When you click this install button, you want to then navigate to where you saved that file and then run it. Once you've done that, you can search for JSX, and you want to make sure that this file here, the import export Adobe After Effects.jsx, is ticked. You can just click this box here like so, and then you want to save your preferences. So now that we've done all that, we're actually now ready to export the JSX from Blender and put it into After Effects. Now a little bit of a preface: the JSX exporter will not, I say again, will not export 3D models out of Blender. That's just not what it does. The purpose of the JSX exporter is to export positional data of lights, objects, and cameras. And this is incredibly useful, as you'll see with this example that we're about to do. So here's my animation that I've made very quickly. If you want to see a tutorial on how to make something similar to this, leave a comment down below. But for now, that's not the purpose of this tutorial. So I've got this animation set up, and I'm going to render it. And let's say I then want to start compositing it in After. Let's say I want to add some lens flares to the emitters, as well as maybe a trail out the back. So in this scene here, I've actually set up a few things to enable us to do that. The first thing is that I have an empty on the back here. And if we navigate to that, you see I've got it set to exhaust. And then I have two lights here that are bound to the 3D model. So this is really good, because what this will allow us to do is it will allow us to track those points in After Effects when we export the JSX out of Blender. Another thing that I've done to set this scene up is I've actually split it up into layers so that I can control the motion blur of different elements, because the lasers, because they were traveling so fast, required less motion blur. It's a bit of a trick, and it's not always going to work, but that's why it's set up like this. If you want to see how to make a scene like this, give this video a like and comment down below. Say, hey, I want to learn how to do that. Also, in regards to blendertutorials.org, I am very happy to announce that the development's going quite well. I've got to put a few more systems in place, as well as beef up the content a little bit more until it's ready for release. Right now we're sitting on a moderate amount of content, but I really want to make sure that when it releases, there's a lot to do on it. And no, it's not a course, but courses are involved. I really want to stress this. This isn't a course. I don't know if I have seen anything like it for Blender. I could be completely wrong. And this service, I feel, is going to be really beneficial to those of you who are just starting out and still learning the ropes. I'm aiming it more towards beginners and intermediates at this initial launch stage. However, I do plan to expand it to more professionals and advanced users of Blender. I'm just really excited for this service. So if you haven't already, please visit the website. You can sign up to a newsletter from there. It's blendertutorials.org. So yeah, thank you so much for watching this video so far. I hope that you're enjoying it. Let's jump back into the tutorial. So now that I've done that, what we're going to do is we're going to export our JSX file. So I'm just going to come and select everything with A for all. And I'm going to come over to File, Export, .JSX, Adobe After Effects. Then you want to save your file out. You can leave all of these as default unless you see something that you don't really want. So I'll save it as TIE Fighter.jsx. Perfect. So now that we've done that, we can jump into After Effects and load it up. So I have After Effects open. I'm going to go to File, Scripts, Run Script File, and then you're going to find that file that you just created, the TIE Fighter.jsx in my case, and I'm going to open it up. It's opened a little window saying, what do you want to call this comp? We'll just leave it as default. And let's jump into that comp. So as you can see here, we've got a lot of information here. We've got our animation all running. We can see the animation running. We can see the camera movement, and we can see that our empties as well. So this is really, really great. So as you can see here, there's the exhaust empty, there's the TIE Fighter empty, there's the lights. That empty there I use to control the camera. So that's what that is. Okay, and that's why it's at the center of the screen always. So this is really awesome because it allows us to track these points in After Effects without doing any tracking whatsoever. It's done all for us. So this is perfect. So now what I can do is I can just drop my file here, my render file. So I'm just going to drop the whole folder in here. And that's going to come in as a image sequence. I want to right click it, interpret footage, main, and just change the frame rate to 24 because that is what my frame rate was when I rendered it. As you can see here, the frame rate of my composition is also 24. And I can then pop this into the stack. Might pop it just below the camera. Wonderful. As you can see, we have our file in here. So that's awesome. And notice that everything is lining up perfectly. There's no sliding across the screen. There's nothing. So this is fantastic to work with. Okay. So now let's add some flares to our shot. I'm going to right click in here, new, solid, and I'm going to call this flares. And I'm going to be using Video Copilot's optical flares. And I'm just going to drag and drop that into my flares layer. Perfect. Now what I want it to do is I want it to use the lights. So I'm going to basically say, so under positioning mode, I'm going to change it from 2D to track lights. Now, bear with me, it's kind of overblown it. The reason is, firstly, we got way too many lights. So I don't need the sun. I don't need that sun. Don't need that sun. And that point light, I don't need either. Okay, here we are. Those 2 point lights are perfect. Reduced the brightness down and the scale. Perfect. So as you can see, these lights shouldn't be, there we go. And the nice thing about this is that it actually is going to copy the intensity of the light. So whenever the lights turn on in brightness, our optical flare is going to actually take over for us. And the reason why this is happening is because in Blender, I've actually animated the values for my light source, the power. And that's why this is giving us this result. So that's really cool. I'm just going to set this mode to add for now. We're getting some awesome lens flares with minimal work. Now, yes, we could touch this up a little bit more, but right now I'm pretty happy with this, and I might just change the lens flares type. So I'm just going to go to options, I'm going to go to preset browser. I'm going to search for natural flares. I'm just going to search through here for something I like. Let's go with glint maybe. And I'm also going to choose a texture image. And I'm going to choose small grime. Spastic. Yeah, it's better. And let's just scale that a little bit. And also turn down the brightness. Perfect. Let's just tweak those values a little bit too high. Let's go maybe 100. We'll actually change this light color mix just to kind of mix between the actual color of it, of our flare. Just to kind of give it a bit more of a natural look. Okay, that's starting to look really nice. Wonderful. So let's add a background to this. Because our camera's animated, we can actually use that to our advantage. So I'm going to make a star field by creating a new solid. I'm going to set the solid's width and height to 4,000 pixels. And I'm then going to add a fractal noise. Black solid. I'm going to call this star field. I'm so used to Blender, I double-clicked it. Rename. Okay, perfect. I'm going to drag that below my TIE fighter. Increase the contrast, decrease the brightness, and under transform, decrease the scale. Wonderful. So to make this 3D, I'm then going to turn on this little 3D checkbox here. We can't see it at the moment. I'm going to right click it and then go to transform, and I'm going to then center in view. Perfect. I'm then also going to then transform again, auto orient, orient towards camera. Okay. So that's great. I don't want it to use lights, so I'm just going to go down here, accept lights, no. And we should have a field now that actually moves with our camera, which is great. We need to scale it up a little bit because see here, it just kind of cuts off. But that's looking good. I'm also going to turn on some motion blur for it. There we go. Wonderful. So that looks really good. I might just increase the contrast a little bit, decrease the brightness, and increase the scale just a tad. Maybe go to 5. That's looking really nice now. So I just want to also play around with the values on my ship. So I'm going to get a curves adjustment layer. Or just a curves, excuse me, and just put it on my TIE fighter and just bump up the brights a little bit and darkens the blacks a little bit too. You don't want to go too much with these curves. You can go really too far sometimes. You just want to do a little adjustments. Nothing major. Okay, so let's take a look at this. Oh yeah, that's looking really nice now. Okay, so after we've done that, well, first let's save our work. So let's call it TIE Fighter. And now let's add some exhaust to this. Now, I know we don't really see much of exhaust in Star Wars, but I think it would be cool to add just to showcase another use for this plugin with combining Blender and After Effects together and using the power of both. Now, Blender's particle system is really strong. However, After Effects also has a really nice particle system. So let's say you wanted to use After Effects particles with your Blender composition. Let's add a new solid, and I'm going to call this exhaust particles. Whoops, and I accidentally made it 4000 by 4000 pixels. So you want to click your layer, go to layer, solid settings, and just make comp size. And that will set that back to the comp size. Okay, you then want to search for particle world. This is a default plugin that comes with After Effects. Perfect. Now, as it is now, probably not going to see much of our particles at the moment, because what we have to do is we have to tell these particles to align themselves with the exhaust null object that we have in our scene. So to do that, we're going to use a little bit of coding, to be perfectly honest. So you want to come under your exhaust particles and then under your effects, CC particle world, and go to the producer. This is what is controlling where the particles are being emitted from. And then under your position X, we're essentially going to, first things first, actually, before we do anything like that, let's actually rename this exhaust by right-clicking, renaming it, and we'll just call it something easier to remember. We'll call it EX track. Perfect. In fact, let's get rid of the cap just so it's even easier. X track. Okay. So back onto your particle producer, we're going to hold down Alt key and then click the stopwatch on position X. This is going to put us into a bit of a code mode. And we want to basically use a bit of code to get this lining up correctly with our emitter. So I am using a bit of a variation of a tutorial from Andrew Kramer and another YouTuber called Short Tuts. Their link will be in the description. So thank you to them for doing the heavy lifting for me. And the code goes something like this. So the code, we're first going to basically define a variable, C. C equals, let's just lowercase c, C equals this comp dot layer. And then we want to call on that layer that we just renamed. So we're going to call on our X track. Wonderful. And then we want to transform position zero. That's basically calling the transform value of that null. And 0 is basically like an array. So 0, 1, 2, X, Y, Z. That's essentially what we're going to be doing. And this comp dot width, and we're dividing 2. And semicolon at the end. And then we'll just use that variable C, and we'll divide it by this comp dot width. Perfect. Semicolon. Okay, let's copy this. And we're going to use this in our position Y now. So hold down Alt, click on the stopwatch, paste it in. We're going to change a few values. Let's change this 0 to equal 1. That's going to be calling on the Y value. And we're going to change width to be height. Perfect. And we'll just let that in. We're starting to see it. It's getting there. So let's do the same thing for position Z. Alt, click stopwatch, paste it in. We do not need pretty much this part here, so just get rid of it. And then we'll just change this value to be 2, calling on Z. Wonderful. Okay, so as you can see here, we've got some particles that actually are following our TIE fighter. Let's put that exhaust particles beneath our TIE, but above our star field. And there we go. How's that? Pretty cool. So now we can go about changing these particles so that, it doesn't look like this. I mean, it actually looks pretty cool already, like if it's a bit more of a stylistic shot. And we could definitely make this look like fire. Imagine it was like shot or something. But yeah, like right now, let's just make it into a bit more of like an exhaust. So under the particle, we're going to change it to a bubble. I'm not sure if we can see it. Let's just change our birth size a little bit. And depth size as well. I actually want to keep it pretty close, so might just do something like that. It's a very interesting exhaust going on here. Let's go to faded sphere. And let's go to produce, actually birth rate, and we'll increase the birth rate to be a bit higher. It's looking pretty funny, but it's kind of cool. And let's change the birth color to be like an exhaust blue. And we'll change the death color to be black, maybe. And max opacity, go 100%. Size variation, we can change the size a little bit. Depth size, we want to be a bit larger. Actually, let's go to 0. Let's see what that looks like. Now let's go a bit larger, something like that. Okay. And under longevity, let's change the longevity a bit just so it's not as a longer trail. Something like that. That's looking kind of cool. Okay. And let's maybe add a glow to this. I know it's not really like a TIE fighter doesn't really do this and it doesn't look like this, but I think it's just a really cool thing to show you how to do. So we've like gone from Blender and we're like doing some really easy compositing now just because we have access to all the positional data from the JSX add-on. And I actually like that glow there. Let's just play around with I'll just turn it off for now though. I'll just play around with the particle world a little bit. Under physics, let's go inherit velocity. Let's increase that by a bit. Gravity, don't want it. Zip. I'm liking it. I'm liking it a bit better. Let's go to our particle. Maybe let's change the size of it a little bit. Let's go to 2, 2. We'll decrease that maybe a little bit, maybe to 1. Just so it looks like it's tapering off. There we go. We're getting there. That's looking really cool. Let's also turn on motion blur for it. And we'll turn back the glow. Okay, so we're pretty much done at this point. I'm really liking how that's looking. Our next step is we're going to basically change the compositing a little bit. I'm going to add an adjustment layer. So new adjustment layer, put that on top. And then I'm going to add to that adjustment layer a Gaussian blur. I learnt this trick a long time ago from Creative Shrimp or Gleb Alexandrov. Amazing artist. If you haven't checked out his channel, I definitely suggest it. I'm going to increase the blurriness to be quite high and change the adjustments blend mode to be soft light. And let's just play around with the opacity I just press T to get the opacity value up. Just a little bit, just to play around with that. And I always find that it really adds a bit of magic to any scene that you use it on. And yeah. Okay. So here's our shot. Here's our final shot. And as you can see, it looks supremely better than if I was to let's just load up TIE Fighter. So here is our original from Blender. No, it's okay, it's not bad. And here is our new one when we've used all the data from Blender's JSX Exporter and combined it with the power of After Effects, and we've been able to get a really strong result. So I hope that this tutorial has been helpful for you all, and I hope that you've enjoyed it. So today we learned about how we can use the Blender and After Effects add-on to essentially speed up our compositing process if we're taking a shot from Blender and touching it up in After Effects. Not only is this super beneficial because you get all the camera movements and the animations, it's also a little bit tricky to find online because the add-on itself for a long time was included in Blender. However, since Blender 2.82, it has been missing. And I get a lot of comments on my previous video about this, like, where is this? I'm not getting it. So I hope that this video has been able to quench those questions. Now, I'm sure that at some point in the future, the file might change locations or it might even become completely incompatible. It may even be included with Blender again. I'm not sure. If that is the case, please leave a comment down below and let everyone know. I hope that this tutorial has been helpful for you all, and I hope that you've enjoyed it. If you have, give this video a like and hit that subscribe button. And leave a comment down below what type of shots you think this would be really useful with, and what have you used After Effects for in combination with Blender. I would love to hear your answers. And I will see you in the next video. This is Hayden Falzon from blendertutorials.org, signing off.